The Deepwater Horizon Oil Spill, one of the most significant environmental disasters in history, has also been marred by allegations of fraud. The disaster unfolded on April 20th, 2010, when the Deepwater Horizon offshore drilling rig operated by BP suffered a blowout while drilling an exploratory well in the Macondo prospect, located in the Gulf of Mexico. The blowout resulted in a catastrophic explosion and fire on the rig, leading to the loss of 11 crew members' lives and the sinking of the rig 2 days later. As the rig sank, a wellhead on the ocean floor began gushing crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico, creating an environmental catastrophe. The spill continued for 87 days, with millions of barrels of oil discharged into the Gulf, devastating marine life, coastal ecosystems, and local economies. Amidst the environmental fallout, legal battles ensued, and BP faced allegations of fraudulent activities related to the spill. In 2012, BP reached a settlement to compensate individuals and businesses affected by the spill. However, reports of fraudulent claims emerged, with individuals and businesses attempting to exploit the compensation fund. Fraudulent activities included the submission of false claims, exaggerated losses, and fabricated documentation to secure compensation funds. The scale of the fraud prompted increased scrutiny and audits to ensure that the funds were directed to those genuinely affected by the disaster. In response to the fraudulent claims, BP took legal action to challenge and recover funds from individuals and entities engaged in deceptive practices. The aftermath of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill not only marked an environmental tragedy, but also revealed the challenges of managing compensation and recovery efforts in the face of fraudulent activities. The legal battles and investigations surrounding the oil spill fraud added a complex layer to the aftermath of an already devastating environmental disaster. In the aftermath of the 2010 Deepwater Horizon disaster, the U.S., the government has taken a firm stance to ensure accountability for the extensive environmental damage. Recognizing BP as one of the responsible parties, federal officials have mandated the processing of claims for cleanup costs and damages arising from the catastrophic oil spill. To manage this, BP has initiated the Gulf Coast Claims Facility, an independent claims facility entrusted with the task of evaluating and disbursing payments from the $20 billion fund established by BP. With a commitment to swift action, the Department of Justice has prioritized the investigation and prosecution of all credible reports of fraud linked to the oil spill and its repercussions. This encompasses a range of fraudulent activities, including deceptive claims, charity fraud, identity theft, insurance fraud, and fraudulent dealings related to procurement and government benefits. United States Attorney's offices, the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice, and federal criminal investigative agencies, in collaboration with the National Center for Disaster Fraud, are strategically positioned throughout the Gulf Coast region to address these cases effectively. Over 100 individuals have been incarcerated for engaging in deceptive oil spill claims against BP, underscoring the extensive fraud challenges confronted by the energy conglomerate in the aftermath of the largest environmental catastrophe in the United States in 2010. Data disclosed by the U.S. Department of Justice following a Freedom of Information request revealed that by September of the previous year, 311 people had been convicted, with 102 receiving prison sentences. Notably, 7 individuals were sentenced to 5 years or more, with one individual facing a 15-year prison term. BP, grappling with the repercussions of the Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, has disbursed billions of dollars in compensation claims. During the peak of disputes in 2013-14, the company launched a public campaign against what it deemed outrageous claims, utilizing full-page advertisements in U.S. newspapers to assert that the situation was detrimental to American business. However, lawyers representing claimants contended that the incidence of fraud was relatively low in comparison to the number of claims processed. The Gulf Coast Claims Facility, BP's initial compensation mechanism, accommodated over 220,000 claimants. By the conclusion of the previous year, an additional 153,000 claims were settled under an agreement reached with plaintiffs' lawyers in 2012. In response to the released sentencing data, BP chose not to provide comments. Legal actions related to the disaster have gradually subsided, with approximately 1,000 active cases remaining, according to court orders issued last year. BP officially declared in July that it had finalized the total costs associated with the spill, amounting to approximately $62 billion before tax. Initially projected at $7.8 billion in the 2012 compensation settlement with plaintiffs' lawyers, the estimate escalated to $12.9 billion by April of the following year. In July, an additional $5.2 billion was allocated to cover pending claims. In 2013, BP estimated a weekly payout of up to $100 million in fraudulent claims, expressing dissatisfaction with the Payment Administration Program's insufficient efforts in fraud detection and prevention. Plaintiffs' lawyers countered that the company was using the issue as a diversion from its failure to accurately gauge its liability. However, Daniel Jacobs, an author from Loyola Marymount University in California, who recently published a book on the Deepwater Horizon disaster, expressed his belief that numerous sentences for compensation fraud appeared excessive considering the nature of the offenses. Jacobs noted, "My students and colleagues find themselves puzzled by the inherent social injustice of imprisoning over 100 people for filing false claims against BP, while no one held responsible for the disaster itself faced incarceration." The U.S. government pursued legal actions against 4 BP employees linked to the disaster, yet none of these cases resulted in prison sentences. Kurt Mix, an engineer involved in the spill response, pleaded guilty to the misdemeanor of deleting a text conversation with a contractor from his phone without BP's authorization. David Rainey, a former BP executive and a key figure in the spill response, was acquitted in 2015 by a jury, clearing him of allegations of lying to a federal investigator in 2011. Manslaughter charges against the 2 BP supervisors on the Deepwater Horizon rig during the accident were dropped. Donald Vidrani, one of them, entered a guilty plea to a misdemeanor charge of violating the Clean Water Act. The other supervisor, Robert Kaluza, faced trial for the same offense and was subsequently acquitted. In conclusion, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill remains a poignant chapter in environmental history, marked not only by the catastrophic impact on the Gulf of Mexico, but also by the subsequent legal battles and claims for compensation. The revelations of fraudulent claims against BP, as disclosed by the U.S. Department of Justice, shed light on the complex aftermath of the disaster. While over 100 individuals have faced imprisonment for filing false claims, questions arise about the proportionality of these sentences in comparison to the overall environmental and economic devastation caused by the spill. Daniel Jacobs, an expert on the matter, suggests a sense of social injustice, emphasizing the absence of punitive actions against those directly responsible for the disaster. The disparity in legal outcomes is evident, with BP employees involved in the spill response facing lesser charges or being acquitted altogether. The complexities of these legal proceedings underscore the challenges in seeking accountability for such large-scale environmental disasters. As we delve into the intricate layers of the Deepwater Horizon saga, it is crucial to foster discussions around environmental responsibility, corporate accountability, and the effectiveness of legal frameworks in addressing ecological crisis. The journey from the initial explosion to the courtroom dramas highlights the need for a comprehensive and just approach to handling environmental disasters. If you found this exploration of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill fraud insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay informed. For more, stay tuned.